Let's spend a little bit of time talking about segmentation for database marketing. As most of you know, there are some differences between segmentation for traditional marketers and database marketing. Let's start with a little bit of a review of the history of traditional segmentation in terms of the basis for segmentation. The very first types of segmentation were geographic segmentation. This is where we changed how we were marketing a product and perhaps even the specific aspects of the product to fit the particular geographic region to which the product was being marketed. As an example, we find that people on the East Coast of the United States prefer New England style clam chowder, while people further down the eastern seaboard tend to prefer Manhattan style clam chowder. And as a result, then, there might be a difference in terms of the way that you made clam chowder and how you marketed clam chowder to each of those groups of people. You notice I have highlighted here demographic segmentation. Demographic segmentation is the most often used form of segmentation. And the reason it's the most often used form of segmentation is because it is easy to administer and segment using this particular approach. There is one small problem with demographic segmentation. It doesn't work. Now, in an ordinary principles of marketing class, we would go into an explanation for why that doesn't work, but it simply doesn't work. Benefit segmentation is a segmentation approach where we try to segment customers based on the benefits sought for each product category. So for instance, if I was buying an automobile, I might be interested in safety. Well, then there might be a safety segment. Or I might be interested in overall cost. So maybe there's an overall cost segment. There also has been the use of attitudes and psychographics and lifestyles in segmentation, typically in an attempt to produce better predictability of what types of products a customer might buy. We also sometimes will talk about geodemographics and geodemographics plus vals. These are more sophisticated approaches to traditional segmentation, all with an eye on doing a better job of predicting what types of products and what types of messages a particular consumer would respond to. Now, let's take a little look at the differences between database and traditional segmentation. In traditional segmentation, we're segmenting with aggregate data, which means we have typically survey data or overall sales data or some other types of customer demographic data at an aggregate level. And so what we do is we then group customers hopefully with similar wants and needs. Remember that the whole point behind segmentation is to group people into homogeneous groups of demand based on their wants and needs. The net result turns out to be target markets for traditional marketers. And usually we'll be talking about 3 or 4 or 5 maybe segments, and we'll be talking about 3, 4, or maybe even 5 target markets. With database marketing, we have different kinds of data, and so the approach changes. First off, when we go to segment in database, we are dealing with individual level data. So and that individual level data with a database includes purchase history data. And so I then will take that data and categorize each customer into a group based on their behaviors rather than their wants and needs or their demographics or their attitudes. And what we end up with are very specific groups of customers which we really typically refer to as microsegments. And in many cases, there could be, as an example, with RFM, there could be 125 microsegments for a particular market rather than 3, 4, or 5. Typically, with database marketing, there can often be more microsegments than there are target markets. So why do database or segment customers in the first place? Well, there are lots of reasons why a databaser might go through the trouble of grouping customers into groups and trying to identify homogeneous groups of demand. One is distinguish between our best, next best, etc. customers with the idea of building strong relationships with our best customers. We might try to segment customers to differentiate customers and motivate them to become better, more profitable customers. Or we might also segment customers to be able to make different offers to different groups. Typically, those would be offers that are more relevant, perhaps more timely, and more directly associated with their wants and needs. We might segment customers, provide different levels of rewards to different groups based on their value to the firm. Or we might segment customers to provide different levels of service to different groups of customers based on their value to the firm. Or finally, we might segment customers as databases to be able to provide different groups with different types of information that they are more likely to act on. So some of the same reasons come into play here as came into play for traditional marketing. It is just that we have different data and therefore can approach segmentation in a different way. Here I have the database segmentation framework that myself and Dr. Jimmy Peltier developed in a journal article published a few years ago. And in this, we talk about trying to profile and predict segment membership. And these, of course, would probably be micro segments, but segment membership. What kinds of information might we use to profile and predict segmentation membership? Well, of course, we might start with demographic information. And of course, we all know what the demographic information would look like. Age, income, gender, size of family, location, rent or own. It could be education levels. It could be affluency. It could be social class. It could be a number of different demographics. We could also use psychographic-based information, values, motives, attitudes, beliefs, lifestyles. We could use that data. Now, this is also the data that traditional marketers use. The difference, of course, is that we would be trying to use this data at an individual customer level rather than at an aggregate level. But one of the big differences for database segmentation is purchase history. Okay, and so this additional piece of information then completes this 360-degree view of the customer to allow us to predict and profile customers into microsegments. So now we have demographic information, psychographic-based information, and purchase history. We then segment these groups of people. We then develop product, service, and communication strategies by segment. And hopefully we will then see how well we have done by measuring profitability or other effectiveness metrics by segment. In summary, the key to database segmentation is grouping customers in a way that improves the effectiveness of the organization's marketing efforts. Becoming more effective and more efficient for database marketers hopefully leads to more profits. Of course, that depends on the goals of the organization in terms of its customers. Goals could include increasing sales, increasing retention, increasing referrals, building relationships, or perhaps even all of the above. So as we think about database segmentation, realize that we have different information at an individual level that will allow us to be more specific and more detailed in how we segment that customer group.